The world's biggest miner has unveiled Australia's biggest corporate profit. BHP Billiton has lifted full-year earnings by a whopping 86% to $23 billion. Revenue was up 36% to $72 billion, well over $1 billion a week. Our Melbourne reporter, Emily Stewart, has been poring over the numbers, and she joins me now. Well, Emily, what has driven this record result?
Well, Tiki, just like Rio a few weeks ago, BHP's results have been driven by a recovery in commodity prices and demand. Now, its biggest earner, iron ore, posted its 11th consecutive production record, and profits were up 122% to $13 billion. Now, BHP Billiton boss Marius Kloppers says that's no accident.
This results reflect our fairly unique decision to invest in growth in the depths of the recent global financial crisis. And last month, we were able to confirm the successful ramp-up of Western Australian iron ore to 155 million tonne per annum run rate.
And some other key contributors were base metals up 50% to $7 billion and oil up 40% to $6 billion. But BHP has faced some challenges as well. The devaluation of the US dollar and inflation has reduced earnings by $3 billion. It's facing increased costs in raw materials and labour. And of course, there were the floods in Queensland.
Persistent and often severe wet weather significantly impacted our Queensland metallurgical coal mines, and today, 6 months after the worst of the weather, our operations continue to be affected by substantial in-pit water accumulation.
Well, despite the problems in Queensland, it really begs the question now, doesn't it? What will Marius Kloppers do with all that cash?
Well, some of it will be returned to investors. BHP has increased the dividend by 22% to 55 US cents, taking the full-year dividend to just over $1. They've also recently completed a $10 billion share buyback, and just this week announced the completion of its biggest ever acquisition, the $12 billion bid for US shale gas producer Petrohawk. Now, BHP has flagged around $60 billion in further spending to ramp up its US shale gas production over the next 10 years.
Our priorities for cash are first to reinvest in the business, then manage our balance sheet to a solid A credit rating, and finally return excess cash to shareholders. In the 2011 financial year, BHP Billiton invested $12.4 billion in organic growth and $4.8 billion in acquisitions.
Now, how has the uncertain economic environment affected BHP's outlook?
Well, BHP remains fairly positive for the future. It's expecting strong demand in iron ore and coal from the emerging economies of China and India. And however, Marius Kloppers did concede that a lot rides with the governments of those emerging economies continuing with stimulatory policies. He also believes the new sources of supply will be higher cost, which he says really plays into the hand of lower cost producers like BHP.
Emily Stewart, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Dickie.